A lot of men try to take one treatment method and apply it to every single acting out behavior. I think that's extremely naive, because what you'll find is, because each one kind of started at a different age and a different time in your life, each one has the potential to be driven by a different driver with a different objective. Have you ever noticed how some acting out behaviors are easier to stop than others? Right? When you get caught and you get into recovery, some behaviors just go away, with others kind of stick around, right? There's that temptation, that constant kind of nagging in the brain telling you, go do it, go do it. How nice would this be? And maybe you're still sober, right? Maybe you're not acting on those things. But the question just becomes, how long until you do? And again, that's why I think we see such a high level of relapse in this space. Is guys don't get into great recovery and they think that, oh, just because I'm not acting out now doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to act out 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now. And the reason for this is each acting out behavior has the potential to be driven a different why, a different cause, a different pathology. While one activity might be an escapist, it might be a coping mechanism, a dopaminergic release. On the other hand, you might have other acting out behaviors that are around getting attention, validation, right? Maybe you're seeking novelty. So we're going to talk about all these different things and the different kind of whys and drivers behind the different men's addictions who have come through my program, as a way to kind of help you examine your acting out behaviors. Because I think a lot of men try to take one treatment method and apply it to every single acting out behavior. I think that's extremely naive, because what you'll find is, because each one kind of started at a different age and a different time in your life, each one has the potential to be driven by a different driver with a different objective. And I'm going to talk about each one just to kind of help you wrap your head around it. I'm not going to go into too crazy detail, just because this podcast would be hours and hours long, but I'm just going to bring you some examples so that you can wrap your head around, okay, what is driving this specific behavior, and is another acting out behavior driven by a different reason, different cause. So let's start with pornography. With pornography, a lot of men, they're consuming pornography, and when you're looking at something through the eyes, an image, a video, it's primarily dopaminergic. I would say pornography is probably one of, I'm not going to say easy, but I would say it's definitely one of the more simple acting out behaviors to examine, in the sense that because you're consuming it through the eyes, it's releasing dopamine in the brain. And so what we know about dopamine is that it hijacks our focus and motivation towards whatever the thing is that we're paying attention to. So guys will consume pornography to hijack their attention away from something else, right? And so that's why it's commonly spoken about as a coping mechanism, right? I'm going to go turn to porn or some visual image to captivate my attention over here, so that I don't have to pay attention to any kind of unwanted feelings, unwanted thoughts. Maybe you have a long to-do list and it's stressing you out and you're procrastinating. So you'll go and do something dopaminergic. And during that time, especially with something like pornography, it's extremely captivating. So your attention goes all the way over there and you forget about your life, right? So pornography is largely an escape. It's a release. It's a coping mechanism to avoid things, right? If you're consuming or become addicted to dopaminergic behavior, it's to escape, right? You're trying to vacate your life, leave and ignore and avoid a situation. But again, I think the sex addiction field tends to kind of apply that same principle to all acting out behaviors. And I think that's a little bit naive. It's naive to think that the only reason men would engage in a sexual behavior outside of their marriage is because they're emotionally regulating with disorder and childhood trauma. I think that can happen, but I think that when we look at sex appeal and sexual attraction, these are very biological things. These are human desires inside of everyone, right? Not just men with compulsive sexual behavior. I mean, everybody has the desire for sex. Everybody has the desire to be attracted to others and have other people be attracted to them, right? So to assume that the only driver is through addictive escapism, I think is a bit naive. And I think it gets guys into trouble, right? Because we see so many men relapsing, right? More men are relapsing than are not relapsing. Only 34% of men are able to obtain long-term recovery without relapse. So when we look at the majority of men who are relapsing inside of 5 years, I believe it's happening because they're trying to apply this one treatment method to all of their acting out behaviors. So let's look at affairs, right? So being escapism and avoiding one's life, right? So more of a coping strategy. What would drive a man to compulsively use women through emotional affairs or physical affairs? So yes, it could be through dopamine. And I will say this, an emotional affair is extremely dopaminergic. Hiding an affair, you have the constant hiding, which can last all day long, right? And that provides you with dopamine because you're putting your focus and your attention on hiding this from your partner. But also there's this constant wondering and wanting, right? You're always looking at your phone and checking, oh, did she text me yet? Did she send me a picture? What should I text her? What's she going to say back? If I don't text her, is she going to text first, right? There's this little game that you play with yourself. So it can be dopaminergic. But it also could be around unmet human needs. So maybe you feel unappreciated. You feel unrespected. You don't feel like your family is appreciating all of your hard work. Maybe your partner, you don't feel like is appreciating you. Maybe you don't feel emotionally or physically connected, right? Maybe it's crazy times at home and you and your partner have been less connected. So then there's going to be this desire to connect. And guys can go and use other women to fill that void, right? So it's less of an addiction then at that point and more of a coping strategy to feel this unmet human need in your life. Another one could just be novelty, right? A lot of being a desire and being a peak experience, right? Having these novel sexual experiences with new people can result in a high. And it's really hard for betrayed partners to kind of see past that, right? When they see it as a dopaminergic addiction, a maladaptive coping strategy, escapism, right? It looks like an illness, right? You're an addict. And so for the partners, it's a lot easier to kind of see past that. The problem that I have with that is I think too many men are trying to be addicts who aren't addicts, but they're kind of forced to be an addict because the only reason their wife's staying with them is because they're an addict. Here's the challenge with that though, is if you're only seeking out addiction treatment and not getting treatment for some of your maladaptive behaviors around your unmet human needs, your addiction to novelty and novel sexual experiences, right? Your reliance on women to give you attention, validation, to feel, a lot of men in my group, their primary addiction is not porn. Their primary addiction is attention, validation. They want to be seen, lusted after. They want to feel desired, right? They want to feel like the most superior man in the room, the most wanted man in the room, right? So that's their primary addiction. So they're constantly seeking out these various experiences to validate those stories, right? Oh, if I can go get her, I'm not going to sleep with her, but I'm going to go flirt with her. And if she gives me her attention, then I'll know, well, I must be the most attractive man in the room because she's extremely attractive and there's all these guys here and I'm the one that was able to win her attention, right? So again, it's starting to become more compulsive, more maladaptive and harmful behavior, but less addictive in that case, right? Because again, if a guy's only doing this 2-3 times a year, is he an addict? Same thing with an alcoholic, right? If an alcoholic's only drinking to drunkenness 5-6 times a year at parties and weddings, is he an alcoholic, right? And so again, the reason I'm bringing this up is as we start examining these different acting out pathways, each one might need a different treatment strategy depending on what's driving it. So we've gone through pornography, we looked at emotional affairs. Let's look at like paid sex. So what are some of the drivers behind paid sex? Massage parlors, prostitution, going to some online platform where you're paying women for content and paying women for photos, right? That's becoming more and more popular these days. What's the driver behind these? Again, it can be dopamine, right? It could be this, hey, I'm engaging in this ritual to escape my life. It could. But I find with a lot of the guys in my program, because a lot of my guys are very successful business owners, entrepreneurs, lawyers, doctors, surgeons, a lot of them have really great lives. They make great money. They're extremely involved in their community. Their wives are just stunningly beautiful, intelligent. They have these wonderful families, right? So they don't really want to escape their life. They love their life. The challenge is they're addicted to making their life better, right? They always want more, right? It's kind of the condition of high achieving men. How can I one up what I did last week, right? And then how do I one up that again and again and again? It's always more and more and more. Well, the challenge with this is more doesn't just stay with cars, wristwatches, investing, money, houses, vacations. More can venture into anything, right? If more is better, and that's your belief, then more attention's better, more validation's better, more novelty's better. And I think a lot of these guys, they get into that. And so why paid sex? Well, it's a way that they can control getting more. Affairs are challenging because there's a higher likelihood of getting caught, right? You have to communicate with these people on a regular basis, right? And so you're constantly putting yourself at risk of getting caught. And again, a lot of these guys love their wives. They really do. They love their families. They don't want to explode their family, but they have this insatiable desire for more attention, more novelty. They want to feel wanted. They want to feel lusted after. They need more, 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 more. And unfortunately, I know this sounds so horrible, but their wife's not enough. Your wife, you're sleeping with her every single night, right? She's in your bed every night. There's nothing novel about it. I'm sorry, the novelty has worn off, right? So if you have become addicted to the novelty of sexual experiences or from attention, then you're going to seek that. And the challenge with that is no woman's going to be enough. You constantly need a new woman almost every single day, right? Because novelty fades. So novelty can be a piece that I see men who are engaging in paid sex. The other thing I can see is there's an element of control and deception, right? It sounds insane, but there are men who like being bad. They like having a secret. They like hiding something. It gives them a sense of control. It gives them a sense of power, secrecy. They enjoy kind of having complete control of how they're seen, how they're looked at. These men who typically have control issues with this, they're really into image management as well, right? So they're constantly trying to enhance their image. They're buying certain cars, wearing certain clothes. They're hyper vigilant and aware of how they act and what they say, their job title, the neighborhoods they live in, the schools that their kids go to, right? So they're trying to control and manipulate all these aspects of their life. And then when they discover paid sex, it's like, wow, okay, hey, with the exchange of money, I can choose the time, location, and date to have this experience, right? And like I said, some men, they love having a secret. They get this little rush of hiding something. So my point is, if we look at all this stuff, and again, I could go on and on and on for hours with this, because there really is. The thing with process addiction is you're going to see a wide variety of brain processes that these men have become compulsive around. Why? Because everybody had different parents. Everybody had different life experiences. Everybody grew up in a different location. Because all of our lives were so wildly different, all of us find value in different things, right? I love attention and validation. I love being seen in unique ways. That is my personal addiction. But you talk to another guy, he might not have that at all, right? He might he wants women to think that he's the best they've ever had, right? Oh, I've never had a better orgasm than from you, right? Oh, I really wish that you weren't married so you could be my husband. Their goal is to make every woman think that he was the best, right? He was the one that got away, right? His primary addiction is, I want all these women to want me to be their husband. So it could be that. I mean, like I said, there's this huge variety. Some guys go after married women. Some guys, to them, they're on this superiority complex and they want to be elite. And so one of their best ways to validate how elite they are is, can I get a married woman who's never cheated before to cheat with me, right? To risk losing her family, her marriage, her whole life. Can I get her to take that chance on me? Because then that, in his delusional brain, that would indicate that if she's going to give up everything, her blessed life for you, then you must be better than her blessed life, right? Which would, again, give you this high of superiority. I'm better than her husband. I'm better than her life, right? I'm worth risking it all. My point of sharing all of this is two things. One, have you really looked at each acting out behavior separately, right? If you engaged in paid sex, did you look at what you're getting out of that? If you have multiple different paid sex avenues, right? If you have prostitutes over here, massage parlors over there, maybe you're paying for content, look at each of those, because each one of those could have a different driver, right? And need a different treatment. And then we go to affairs. What are you getting out of that? If you're engaging in affairs, are you flirting with women, right? And then we go to pornography. What are you getting out of pornography? My point is, you need to see what each acting out behavior is giving you, because each one might need a unique treatment. And if you're not doing that, again, I think you're putting yourself at a high risk of relapse.